Why did Gohan become a scholar? Now, this is kind of a obvious answer to this question where, everybody say, Chi been grooming him to be a scholar since he was a child. And that is one factor. But, as you grow older, you decide to make your own decisions. But at the same time, that can also affect your decisions on how you grow up as well. And the thing to that is that people kind of wonder is like, why is Gohan not into fighting when both of his parents are fighters? Goku and Chi-Chi both are fighters. He comes from a long line of warriors with, Bardock, Raditz, and, even just the Ox King being like, a king and labeled as like a form of a warrior. So Gohan does come from a long line of warriors, and how his paths change to the point where he becomes more of a scholar in the future and kind of like wants to give up fighting in a sense, but always gets pulled back in due to just a means of him having to step up and be Earth's protector at times, and also to protect his family and friends. So we're going to get into it and see like why did Gohan become a scholar. Now, as we've seen, Gohan as a kid, he kind of had a very wild childhood, and at the start of the Dragon Ball Z portion of the series, Gohan is introduced. He's around this time, he's at the age 4, and he doesn't really know too much about like fighting, martial arts, all that stuff right now. He's just being a kid and growing up and having fun, with his dad Goku. And he goes on to meet, Goku's friends, and everyone gets to see Gohan. He's kind of like, grown a little bit, and right then and there he gets kidnapped by his uncle Raditz, and now he gets pretty much has to step up, unleashing a hidden power that he has inside of him, which helps them defeat Raditz, and pretty much gets to live with Goku's mortal enemy at the time, who's Piccolo, and get trained by him for a whole year, which was mostly a survival tactic at the time for like the first 6 months. Now, at this point, Gohan gets his first taste of really becoming a warrior and training, but he still hasn't had that much experience in combat. So at the time of him, meeting the Saiyans, that was his first real test of like, okay, hey, you're in combat and not just doing like something sporadic at that time, like what he did with Raditz. But from there, Gohan had to continue to pursue and move forward to pretty much bring his friends back by going to Namek and pretty much having to like step up. And all this is pushing Gohan to like have to be strong. And at this time, Gohan is through such an attachment to Piccolo that he definitely wants to bring Piccolo back, because Piccolo pretty much raised him for a whole year and had to be his parent during that time frame. And at a young age, that can definitely have a lot of effects, as seeing somebody as a father figure in the meantime who's there stepping up and taking care of you at the time, whether it was tough love and giving Gohan that different side of the world, instead of knowing that everything is not always going to be peaceful and that he has to be, a warrior. And at the time, I do got to say, around Namek Saga, it's probably the toughest that we ever really seen Gohan throughout the series, because typically Gohan is usually after this point is like he's not really into wanting to fight. He will probably go and want to train and do stuff with his dad because of just he wants to be like his father and be strong like Goku. That's who he admired. So he will always be interested in go do stuff with Goku. But overall, when it comes to really like fighting or fighting to the death, anything like that, he's not into that at all. And this also plays a part of his human side. And just like a regular human, not most people are going to be one to go out and just fight. And also at the same time, him being so young and being scared. But during the Namek Saga, we got to see Gohan got to be a lot more brave in the thing, because he had a mission and a goal to accomplish, and his real goal was to get those Dragon Balls and bring back his friends. And it wasn't really to defeat Frieza at the time. Now, as we move on to like the Cell Saga, that's a little bit different. It's more so like, hey, we're not fighting to bring anyone back. We're here to try to stop, the androids or Cell at this time. So at this point, things are a little bit different for, Gohan at this point. He's more so like at first just training to be like, okay, hey, I want to be strong like my father, but at the same time, he doesn't understand what is Cell's plan at this point. Like, why Cell, pretty much doing this, like tormenting the humans and the people on Earth, Whereas in like it's a little bit different when it comes to like someone like Frieza. And with Frieza's case, Frieza wanted the Dragon Balls before he could get his wish. So it was like more of a set goal at this point that, the Z Fighters wanted to bring their friends back, and Frieza wanted the Dragon Balls to make his wish. Vegeta wanted the Dragon Balls to make his wish. So it was like that was a little bit different. Of everyone was like kind of like fighting for something. Whereas in Cell, who just really just want to test his power and ability, Gohan doesn't really look at that as like a real reason to be harming people and stuff like that. Even though like it doesn't make what Frieza did any better, but he understood that okay, with the Dragon Balls you can make a wish and you can get whatever you desire to come, true pretty much at this point. So it made things a little bit more sense to know like okay, hey, this is actually a goal. But when it came to Cell, that wasn't the case. It was really like, hey, what are we fighting for really? Like what is your plan after this? At that definitely played a different psychological. We got to see a different Gohan around that time because Gohan didn't really want to fight Cell. Whereas it was the difference with Frieza, with him knowing, hey, I got to fight Frieza because one, I got to protect these people because Frieza wants to rule everything and also get the Dragon Balls. Whereas in Cell just wanted to destroy everything and test his power and have fun and torture people just for the hell of it. So it's slightly different but very similar. But I think that plays to Gohan's, kind of mental at the time of like what he sees and why he goes about the situation against Cell a little bit different than when he was on Namek. Now, as we do see Gohan throughout the years go on to like study, and after he defeats Cell, he goes to high school and really starts to focus more on school and less on the training, because at this point he's not really focused on like fighting, but just really more into just going into like his high school life. And at this point he realized, okay, hey, he always brought his dream of being a superhero to life by actually becoming a real superhero and protecting people and pretty much just doing like superhero stuff. But at this point he's also just doing it just to protect his identity, to keep everything secretive like a superhero. Now, what makes Gohan want to be a scholar? And that is the big question, because now at this point Goku's not around. Gohan becomes the strongest person on the planet, but without any challenges, anything. Like, Gohan is different from Goku. He's not out to seek for like adventure. So without anyone to kind of like break that mold, and as you can see, like with parents, I always seen this a lot, like with kids that grow up with strict parents, the parents that's usually on them, like usually even if you don't agree with everything your parents, but how you're raised is kind of like what you're going to get pushed towards most times. In most cases, only very few cases you may see the kid goes in a different direction from what he was raised. But sometimes a lot of you can see kind of like how someone was raised plays a factor on them when they grow up. And since Gohan was strictly always pushed into the books, that was always a main factor of like something that he realized, okay, it's like almost a goal. Like, this is something he has to do outside of saving the world. So it's like, where there's no threats in the 7 years from after defeating Cell, Gohan pretty much had to find a new goal, which is like pretty much focusing on school, what any parent would want him to do. And the way Chi-Chi was pushing everything on him to like focus and do something different, that's kind of like what he ended up doing. Things a little bit different for Goten, because like I said, Chi-Chi comes from a line of warriors, so just like Goten as well. And with Goten resembling so much like Goku at the time, and Goku not being around, mentally Chi-Chi kinds of like pushed Goten to be the next Goku, just because how he act, the nature of how he was as a kid. He act so much like Goku, looked like Goku, so it kind of reminded Chi-Chi of Goku as a kid, and kind of like wanted to push him in that direction of like kind of taking on that point, because Gohan is already at the point where his mind state is different from Goten and free spirited a little bit. Like, he's more so a little bit more serious and reserved, and she wanted to push him in that direction to be like, okay, hey, let's see you do something better than what we could have been. But at the same time, with Goten showing up, Goten resembles so much of Goku, and kind of like wanted him to fit his shoes, which I got another video on Goten, which I would reveal that later on when the video drops, because I don't want to reveal the ideas and spoil anything yet. But it's gonna go in more in depth into something like that, explaining some stuff about Goten. But as we move back to Gohan on why he decided to be a scholar, and this is all things that play a factor into it, even to the point where as we look at stuff like in Super or even in GT, as Gohan is like, this business person, or great scholar who pretty much discover a lot of stuff, even just to the video games on Dragon Ball Online. All these things shows that different discoveries that Gohan was pretty much able to do. And this is kind of like the direction he was pushed to as a kid. And it's like when they say someone is molded, it kind of plays a factor to that he's molded, and his human side of things is going to be like, okay, hey, this is what he wants to kind of like accomplish as his goal, because he was always molded to this as a kid. And more so, that plays a bigger factor than his warrior side, because like I said, him being on a peaceful planet like Earth and not having threats here and there throughout the time frame allowed him to pretty much soften up and just cater more to his human side of things. But at the same time, a scholar, it just means someone who's great into his study. So all this plays a factor that whatever Gohan wanted to put his mind to and his interest, that stuff would have been it's still up in the air to like what he wanted to do. And I think for Gohan, that he figured this would probably be the greatest disguise to separate himself from his warrior side. So he'll probably do more of the thing that's opposite from him being a warrior. Kind of like this, the same thing of we see like characters like a Superman, who's as Clark Kent, he decides to like try to act a little clumsy and stuff at times, just to pretty much throw people off from how bold Superman is. And which Gohan kind of indirectly does this the same, where him trying to be a more reserved, calm, nice, and a little bit like I said at the time, clumsy at times, where he in his warrior form is a little bit different. He's more serious and down to business. So, and sometimes may even get aggressive and also arrogant as he starts to let his Saiyan side take over when he has the upper hand in the battle. So that's it for this video. All that kind of plays a factor to why Gohan became a scholar, and pretty much it was just that he was kind of molded since he was a child and deep into his studies, and him going through those peaceful times, his earthling side of things kind of just pushed him in that direction to pretty much become a scholar. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and check out my next video that's coming out soon. And we got a lot more videos that's coming, so just stay tuned.